So thank you for joining me today. We're going to be taking a look at some new features in OpenPoint Map, things that we thought we should definitely show you guys before you actually got the update, which will be coming pretty soon. And it directly impacts some of the user interface conventions that you're used to. So you'll definitely notice some of these things. Not that it's going to be difficult to understand. I think that you probably wouldn't have too much trouble trying to just figure it out based on what you're seeing on the screen. But we thought, having a heads up would probably be a good idea. And there's also some other things too that aren't as obvious that we wanted to talk about along the way. So as far as the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the data now being in the cloud. Then I'll shift over to the new process for installing layout and plant, and that's probably the biggest topic. The next thing is going to be copy and paste construction units. That's a brand new feature, and so I'll go over a demo. We'll see how that all works. And then also we're making some changes to how deletion works of features, and so that's going to be a little more simplified than it was in the past, but should be pretty straightforward to use as well. And then we're going to look at the new in-place transfer option. So that is a little different than what some of you have done before. It's easy to use, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and it should save a lot of steps for some of that, some of what people are doing right now today. So then we'll look at the change to the search box. It's a little bit faster. And then we'll talk a little bit about the upgrade to Arcgis Pro 2.8, and so that is on some computers already, but there's also some gotchas with that while they're working out some bugs. So that's kind of what today will look like as far as the agenda. So let me just jump right into this. So the first thing is just wanting to let you know that we're moving some of the data that is currently locally on your server in your map database, and we're putting that into the cloud. And so as far as your perspective, what you're seeing and how things operate, that part really shouldn't have any real impact on your day-to-day activities. And so what we're finding is that having more of that data out in the cloud and being there immediately helps with a number of things. And so one, it's going to change the need for doing a changes sync. So you'll still want to do them. There's still some data that's being moved back and forth, but it's going to be a lot less than what's happening today. So when you hit the changes sync button, you'll probably notice that it's going to be faster, especially if you've ever done a whole bunch of updates and you've hit the button and you've waited a while. That should definitely be improved. The other thing too is if you ever wanted to run reports after you've made changes to the map, layout changes or construction unit changes to the plant data, then you always had to run changes sync. And if you forgot to do that and you ran a report, then your data wouldn't be there. So with this update, that data is now going to be always there, because when you're making those changes, you're actually making them into the same cloud database that OpenPoint Web is using when you're doing your work orders and inventory and all your other downstream related activities. So that's going to be beneficial for everybody. So I know, anytime we're working with you and there's data things that we're looking at, we always say, hey, can you make sure you hit the changes sync button? We probably won't have you do that hardly ever now that the data is more in the cloud than it was in the past. And so it's also great for that plant detail report, since that is, it's pretty heavily used, and it's really a key thing that we use all the time when we're trying to do analysis. And when we're running it, we will always know it's like, this is the latest data that's out there. There's no need to run that changes sync. It's going to be, whatever is available to you will be available to us in that regard. There are some things with the feature data, the features themselves, that we would like to get up there sometimes. So there, once in a while, we'll still say, hit the changes sync. We need to see something, and that will still be helpful, but it'll be less than what we've done in the past. And the other thing too, it's going to be easier for us to diagnose when there's problems. And so, right now we get, we're running those different reports behind the scenes. And right now I can't always tell if something is flagged, if it's because a change of sync wasn't done or not. So now I'll know that that isn't the problem, and I'm looking at the latest data. So all the things are benefits. We don't see too many downsides to it at this point. If you notice any problems or issues once you get the update, then let us know. The only question, I guess, would be, performance possibly. So all the tests that we ran here, it actually ran a little bit faster doing it this way than running it locally. But if your internet connection is really slow, it's possible that it could slow it down a bit. So if you notice any problems in that regard, just let us know, and then we'll see if we can help with that in some way. Okay, the next topic is the changes to installing layout and plant. And so I think the best way to show that is just to do a short demonstration. So I'm just going to go, I've got a poll selected right now. I'm going to go and select a job. And I've got a test one set up just for this purpose. So it's called layout example. And so I've got my job selected. That's not any different. And then I'm going to go to construction units, into the job layout mode, and then I'm going to click on install. And so it's prompting me for an assembly code here, and this part isn't changed at all. So I'm going to go and select my my poll here like I normally would. And so as soon as I double click this, though, that's when you'll see the difference. So notice now that it's going into this create layout dialog box. Previously, it would go right into the construction units pane. So in this area down in the lower right on my construction unit screen here, and then you would go and complete the changes there if you had anything else to modify. Now it's going to put it front and center. It's going to make you have to, click the create button or the cancel button before it'll go away. And we did that for a number of reasons. So, one thing is that once you're making changes with both layout and with plant, when it was going down into the construction units pane, it's kind of taking the focus away from the center of the screen. And it's such an important step in the process that we wanted it to be more like pretty much right there. You can't really ignore it. And the other thing too is everyone has their construction unit panes in different places, different sizes. Some people have it on a totally different monitor if you have multiple screens. And that's another thing that kind of made it a little bit awkward for something that's such a key step in the process. We also added the ability to hit the change button here. So if you had made a mistake and you'd already filled out some other values and things, you can always click the change button, go back in and reselect whatever the unit happened to be. Once you're done with all your changes, then all you have to do is click on the create button, and then it's going to act like it did before. So it's going to put the record over here, and you've got the construction unit window down below that when you click on it. And at this point, you shouldn't need to make any additional changes. You might want to verify it, but other than that, you've really completed that whole step in the process. And that's really it. I mean, like I said, you probably would have been able to figure that part out without us telling you that something had changed, because the fields are the same. They're in the same basic locations. The defaults work the same. So really operationally, it's pretty close to how it was. We didn't want to just spring this on you and have you wondering what was going on. We thought, okay, we need to definitely demonstrate this before we do this update. So that's really all there was to that one. Let me move on to one of the new features. So one of the things that people have asked us about is being able to do copying and pasting. And right now you can already do copying and pasting of the features themselves, but you couldn't copy and paste any of the construction units. And so we don't have a complete full-on select the feature and copy the feature with all of its construction units. We don't have that ability yet. But we do have another step that we are finding that it's been useful to me, I can tell you for sure. But hopefully this will be something that you'll find useful as well. And it allows you to select a construction unit that's already been created and then paste that either within the same feature, and I'll explain why you want to do that in a second, or if you had, say, a number of poles or wires that you wanted to copy the same construction unit into, you can copy it one time and just keep on saying paste. And I will show you how that works here. So let me go and do a quick copy here so we have something to work with. So I'm going to copy these items out here. So I've got just some wire and some poles. And let's see, I'll just do the normal map copy feature here. And then I'll paste it. And I'm just going to drag it down a little bit. So the ones at the bottom there are all the new ones. And so right now, of course, it's just the features themselves. It's not any of the construction units. So if I go and look at, like, say, this wire right here, and I'm in the plant mode here, you can see there's nothing there. If I go to one of these wires here, I've got some primary wire construction unit that is already set up. And let's say I want to do, the same basic idea that I had before. So to do that, I can just go and click on the construction unit I want to copy and make sure the unlock button, of course, has been turned on. And then down below, these options have been extended. This is the same one you use for when you do deletions or break aparts. We've added one now called copy plant. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm just going to go and select the wire right below that. So this is one of the new ones. And now there's a new option here called paste. So when I hit paste, it's going to give me another dialog box. And in this case, I want to just paste exactly what I had. So the same construction unit, the same count. Maybe I want to change the year. I could do that. So if I want to do this and say it's 2015 instead, I could do that, or I could leave it. It's going to then also get the station from and to for the wire. Now, I didn't change these station numbers when I copied and pasted, but it would grab whatever the wire or whatever the poles that it's connected to, whatever it's going to be connected to, it's going to show those instead. So keep that in mind. You generally are going to want it to switch to what you're working on. And then also the thing it's going to do too is, because it's a wire, it's smart enough to say, oh, you want the same construction unit, but you probably want whatever this new wire's length to be instead of the old ones. And so that way, if you have some different sized wires, but it's the same construction unit, you don't have to worry about going in and changing that. It'll default whatever's in the span attribute field there. It will default that length right to here. And so once you've filled that out, then you can just click on the create button. And now we've got it there. So we've pasted that right in. And so now I can keep on pasting these continuously down the line. I'll show that. Now, if you remember, one thing I did is I actually made that one change here to that 2015. So in my case, this is all 2015 stuff that's supposed to be there. So I'm just going to do another quick copy. So then now I can just go to the next one and say paste. I don't really even have to look at this. I know it's going to default all the right information. Notice that the length changed there. It's 241. I can go on to the next one and paste again, and so on down the line. And so now I've done this a lot more quickly. Another change to the length there. So it's way quicker than having to go through and search for the construction unit every time, fill out all the information, and continuing down through that process. So yeah, I just used this yesterday. Actually, we kind of rushed and got this installed for somebody so that I could use this, because I was doing some map cleanup work and I really needed to do a lot of that copy and paste work. So I've already put this through its paces in a production environment, and it's working really well. So so that's one thing, just being able to copy and paste to to multiple different features. But another thing that we don't have that the copy and paste will help with is when you want to change an existing construction unit. So we currently don't allow that, and we still don't, where you can just go into an existing plant record or a layout record and just change that unit code to something else. And so there's a number of reasons why it works that way. We've really locked that down in the database because that value is so critical to so many downstream things, that we wanted to make sure that that we didn't do something that would make it so that it would cause problems down the road. And so even ourselves, when we're making changes, we can't go in and just change it. We have to go through a process to where we actually do kind of similar to what we're doing, where you're basically copying the existing item and then pasting it, but in that paste, you're changing that Unicode. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So let me go and select from this poll. I'll zoom in a little bit. And we've got a pole here, and we've got a cross arm. And let's say that really the poles were put in incorrectly, and these were all supposed to be 40-foot poles, not 35-foot poles. And so right now you can't just go in and edit that. It's locked. But what you could do is you can do a copy, and you can say paste right within the same feature. And when I do that, I can now I can change the unit code here. So I can just go in and change it, and I can say P40 and select that option, and then say create, and then it's going to create that for me right above here. And then I just go in and I'm still selected on the one I initially started with, and then say delete. And so it's still a few steps, but it's better than having to recreate it from scratch, especially if it's something like wire. If it has things like description information or other information on it, it's going to copy the whole thing. So just keep that in mind, that it's a little bit of a time saver. You don't have to do any typing. It's all just, point and click, and it'll be able to do that updating in a pretty straightforward fashion. So let me see if there's anything more about that topic. I think that really covers it. At some point we'll probably have the ability to directly at least have like a change unit feature that you click on it and say, change unit, and then it lets you change it and then just have it do it all in one step. But like I said, it is something that is, pretty, we're being very careful about. It's not like it's a difficult programming task as much as it is just us being careful. Another thing that we're going to be having at some point is the idea of having templates, so that you could have, like, say, a pole that's a standard pole. It always has, a certain type of cross arm and a certain pole unit code, and maybe like, a fuse or a arrestor or something like that. And you want to be able to just do it one time and then be able to paste it multiple times. So we actually have that already right now in our field tools. That's a relatively new feature that we added. We've got some field inventories that are underway right now. And so that's been being used to be able to do that exact same concept. We will be bringing that into the OpenPoint Map software in Arcgis Pro at some point as well. And so we have a lot of the hard parts of that done, but we still need to take some time to finish that off and make sure that's working correctly. So, okay, so the next thing I want to do is to show the new transfer options. So let's see, I've got a spot here I want to go to on the map. So I'm going to slide over to that. So not everyone is using the transfer capabilities. And so when I talk about a transfer, what does that mean exactly? So when you have a situation to where, let's say you have a pole and it's got a number of things connected to it, and you need to be able to change out the pole, but all the other items that are there are still going to remain on the new pole. And so you can do that now. It takes a number of steps to be able to do that. When you do it through a transfer process, the layouts will actually, instead of saying install or remove, it'll say transfer. And we do that in order to be able to charge out the labor related to that to a maintenance account. So it really should not go to a plant in that case. And so a lot of times, it's not always a huge amount of money, and a lot of times utilities don't worry about that. But some are definitely wanting to track it through the transfer process so that it does do the maintenance charging correctly and accurately. And so this is really for those that are doing it that way. So let me show you how that works here. So I'm going to first go and select a new job. And I've got one already set up for that I called transfer something or other, transfer demonstration. So I've got the transfer demonstration selected, and let's see. Okay, good. I don't have anything on the job layout at this point. So I'm going to hide that screen there. And I'm going to go to this pole, and let's go and see what's on it right now. If we look at it, oops, we've got already some stuff on this one. I forgot to delete it out when I was, let me see if this one's got some things on it. Oops, wrong button. And yeah, we've got a couple things on here. Let me add something real quick just so we can see a few different things. And you'll get a better idea on this. So this is probably good enough. So let me make that one centered. So I've got my transfer job selected. I've got an arrestor, I've got a cross arm, and I've got the pole itself. And I'm going to go to the job layout. And normally you do the install or remove options. In this case, I'm going to hit the transfer button. And now it's going to give me a couple of options. So we've got in place, or we have move. So the old way, the original way, it would do a move. And so what we want to do this time is actually in place. So move would be now you would use that if you were literally going and saying this item is getting moved to, from pole A to pole B, a totally entirely different pole. That would be a move. But if you're just wanting to do things in place on the same, basically the same feature on this map, but with a brand new pole being replacing what was there, then you would say in place. So I'm going to select in place. Actually, you know what you would do first? Actually, this is fine. This will be fine how to do it this way. So you can see what's on here already. We don't want to transfer the pole because that's what is actually going to be removed and then it replaces something else. But I do want to grab the other items. So I'm going to click those two and I'm going to say transfer. And so what you'll see here is it's going to go and create these transfer to and transfer from layout records. And so that's basically saying, I'm going to be transferring it to and from basically the same location. And then over here on this the application mode, it's going to say maintenance. So instead of it being construction like it normally would be, it's going to do maintenance, and that's how it's going to know to handle all the cost-related things related to this properly. So normally to finish this off, you would also remove the pole, and so I'm going to do that, and then you would do an installation and say maybe it would be the same exact one, but just a brand new version of it, and that would be it. So that was the entire transfer process. So you probably want to do the removal of the pole first, then the install of the new one, and then the transfer option where you just pull all the stuff off, basically temporarily and put it back on. And so it's not really doing anything to the layout records except for that it knows that it's going to be making that change in the database, and then on the job you'll see that as well. So if I were to go over to the job record right now, I'm going to go and say website. And so we're going to flip over to OpenPoint Web. Hopefully I logged in. Oh, good, I did. And so this is the layout with that installation and removal of the pole, and then all of the transfer from, transfer to options are done there. And notice too that I had that existing job. I did those layout changes, but I didn't do change to sync, so I didn't have to do that because now it's just going directly into the live OpenPoint Cloud database. And so there's no need to do that interchange between the two systems. And so, okay, so that was about all there was to that option there. So that was the transfer from to. I'm going to go and show some new features related to deletion. And so, okay, so I copied earlier these poles and the wires kind of in the center of the screen there. And so now I want to delete these. And some of these have some plant on them already because we did those copy and paste maneuvers earlier. So you can see some of these have some plant. And so before, when you went into do deletions in OpenPoint Map, you had a mode that you would go in. So you would basically, there was an option up here, and you'd click on it, you had a drop down, you'd go into 3 different options. And I think that for a lot of people that was kind of unclear as to exactly how that worked. 2 of the options were really similar, and we just thought it was a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. So we've simplified this down quite a bit. We think this is going to be a lot easier than it was in the past. Now we just have 2 options. There's delete and then delete no job. And so by default, any type of deletion that you try to do is going to expect that you have a job record selected, and that you're going to want to add to that particular job. So let me actually make sure. Right now I do have a job selected, so I want to get rid of that. So I will do that. Okay, that's gone. So I don't have a job currently, and this is true. So you can use the button here to delete, and so I'll do that first. So I'm just going to select my wire. I'm going to say delete. And it's going to give me a warning message, or actually an error message. It's going to say that you can't do this because you don't have a job. And so if you try any of the built-in ways of doing deletions within Arcgis Pro, like using the keyboard or going to attributes and right-clicking and saying delete, or using the menu option that's in Arcgis Pro as well, under the map menu, any of those things, it's going to assume that you need to have a job for it and that you're applying it to the job that you're working on. The reason that we're doing that is that's the safest option. So, because generally speaking, it's going to stop you from doing anything that's really too damaging, right? So you're not really necessarily deleting something that you weren't intending to. And so in this case,
it won't require a job unless there's plant that hasn't been removed yet. I just thought I would mention that. So that's only the case where you accidentally left plant on there and you didn't already do a removal for it. So I just want to mention that. It does check for that.
That's a great point. So right, if I had tried to delete one of these other items, like this poll here, I think that doesn't have anything on it, right? And I say delete there, it's not a problem. So generally, when we're working with maps, we're more concerned about features that have some kind of plant data associated to them, because that's definitely a warning that it's going to cause your property records to be out of balance. That's why it kind of gives you that message. And if it's just a normal thing that you're working on, like say you're sketching out a new part of the map and you made some mistakes and you just want to delete, then it's pretty forgiving about that. It's assuming that that's going to be a pretty safe thing to do. And don't forget, you do still have the undo capability. So you have those little arrows in the upper corner there that let you go back and go back a step. Actually, you can go back several steps. So if you do accidentally delete something that didn't have plant and it deleted and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, then use the undo and you can always back out of that. And so okay, so let's go to the other option now. So I was selecting one of these wires here, and the other option is delete no job. So in this option, you're specifically telling it, hey, I'm going to delete a feature. It's got plant on it. I know that it does. And I want you just to basically still do it anyways. And so one thing I wanted to point out too is if you hover over these options, the delete no job or the delete, it does give you a description of each one of those. So if you're not sure, just put the cursor over it and then do the, let it show you the message there. So I'm going to go ahead and do delete no job on this one. So now this one does have plant data. So it's going to give you a warning message and it's going to tell you, delete without doing a CPR update. And it's saying the feature deletion will also delete plant without a job. Are you sure you want to delete one plant record without updating the CPR? This cannot be undone. And so features, you can do the undo button on, but construction units, you can't do the undo button on. So keep that in mind. And the key thing there is that it's going to tell you the number of plant records that are being deleted. So 1 in this case is what will be deleted. Just in case that if sometimes you're deleting something and maybe you're on the wrong item and seeing that you're deleting like 4 or 5 things from a poll when you thought you just had just the poll and a cross arm on it, that can be another flag. You'd be like, oh, am I on the right one or not? So or if you had multiple features selected and you thought you had one, you see that shows that it's got 20 plant records that it's going to delete. Then it's another flag to say, hey, I've probably got the wrong thing selected there. So I could cancel this out if I want to, or I can say yes, which I'll do right now, and it'll go ahead and delete that properly. Now, if I use the delete no job and I didn't have any plant data, then it's just going to delete the feature just like the other delete option did. So again, it's assuming that if there's not any plant, that it's not as big of a concern. And if you want to just do a simple undo, you can easily just do that and it won't cause any problems. Okay, that was it on the deletion changes. So the next thing is we made some changes to the search box. So I'm in the upper part of the screen here, and I'm in the search box section here. Probably the most important thing is that it is faster. So Mindy was able to figure out how to make this go a little bit quicker than it did before. So I'm typing in, I have my poll entered here, or station number, and I'm going to click on the binoculars so you can see now I'm clicking on it. So it just went right to it. There's really no real delay there, and it went right to the right option there. So before, there was a little bit of a delay, and it would eventually get there. It wasn't super slow, but it was slower than sometimes the select by IDs, which was interesting, and that's how we kind of figured out a better approach. Was select by IDs was able to do a lot, and it would do it relatively quickly. When you would do even a single global ID, then it would actually take longer. And so So anyways, it does do more of a search though. So that's the other part that has changed, is that now it's also going to start looking at location numbers for electric and water meters. And so if I type in element location number here and I do the binoculars, it went right to a meter. So we didn't have a meter option search before. So it was always primarily focused on the station number, which was, poles, PEDs, hydrants, things along those lines, valves. And so now we've added that capability. So now we have so that search box will now include the global ID, the station number, and now the location number has been added to that. And so any of those options will be available as part of that searching option. So hopefully you'll find that to be a little bit faster too. So that was it for the search boxes. So that is really all I had on feature changes. The last topic I wanted to cover is the upgrade to Arcgis Pro 2.8. And so most of you, I think, are on 2.7 right now. A couple of you are now already on 2.8. We've been running it here for a while. It's been working pretty well. The big change that Esri is claiming with 2.8 is that it's supposed to be faster. They said the startup times are faster when you're first going into a map, and some of the map rendering should be faster. So I think it is probably a little bit faster. I don't know that I've noticed major changes, but any kind of performance increase will be welcome. It can sometimes be a little bit slow, especially on slower computers. So hopefully that'll be something that you've noticed. So we will be coming around. We're going to start the process probably this coming week for getting your upgrades going. So when we do the updates, we're going to do Arcgis Pro, get the 2.8 version installed, and then we're also going to do the OpenPoint Map add-in. So both of those things will be happening. And so there is some pretty big database changes that are happening along the way. And so it does take a little bit of time. Also, the Arcgis Pro installation can sometimes take a while just to download and get it fully installed. The add-in part goes really quick, but some of the other pieces are a little bit slower. And so one thing, there is a bug that Arcgis Pro 2.8 introduced. I don't think it will really affect you. Hopefully, it's not something that you do. And that is, it doesn't currently allow add-ins like OpenPoints to run multiple times. And so what I mean by that is you can run two completely separate instances of Arcgis Pro. And in 2.7, it was perfectly fine to have add-ins like ours running, and it would support that with no problem. So if you had like an electric map and a water map, you can have them running at the same time and do all of your work between the two, and it just had no issues with that. So with 2.8, the first one, when you first run your first instance, it'll work just great. And then when you run the second one, it'll go into the map. You'll see the map just fine, but the add-in won't be running. And you'll be able to tell that because you'll see the icon in the upper left-hand corner. So that icon there is telling you that the OpenPoint map add-in is running. And so that is a bug that they are going to fix, though. This is not something they intended to do. It was just they were working on these other performance issues on startup, and they did something that caused a problem there. So a number of their developer partners like us have reported that, and they have responded directly to us about that, saying, yes, this will be fixed. We're assuming that will be in the next update. That update it will just be an incremental update, so it shouldn't have to wait till 2.9. It should be, we're on 2.8.1 right now. It should be 2.8.2. We're expecting that to be fixed, and so when that happens, we'll probably have everyone go and just do the incremental update just on your own systems, and nothing else will need to be changed. You won't have to do any reinstallation of the OpenPoint software. So it's probably something you can do on your own. But we'll let you know once that's available. And of course, we'll test it out first to make sure that it didn't break any other things. That is the one downside with some of the Esri stuff, is that there is a tendency to kind of break things when they do rollouts that developers have written. And so you've noticed we kind of go pretty slow when we do these updates for that reason. And so we're gonna wait for this one problem to be fixed, but we really wanted to get this update out to everybody. This one, because it has such important changes to it, and it's something that we think that will be beneficial overall for everyone. So we didn't know if it was going to be another month or 2 months. I don't think it'll be more than 2 months before this bug gets fixed from Esri. But either way, we thought we should just get this one rolled out sooner than later. So one thing that can also happen as part of this, if you exit out of Arcgis Pro and then you immediately go back into it, then sometimes Arcgis Pro, the first instance, hasn't completely unloaded itself. And so you can, if you close, go back in right away, then it'll have that problem and you'll notice it because the icon up here won't be displayed. So if you need to go out and go back in, say there's some kind of a reason you need to reset it, which happens, of course, from time to time, then exit out and just wait 10 seconds before you go back in. If you just do a 10 count and then try it. So far, I've done that, and I've never had any problems. It may not really need to be that long, but I've definitely had the issue to where I've closed it and gone back in too quickly, and it didn't load the OpenPoint add-in. So just keep that in mind, and we should be in pretty good shape. So that's really all we had for today's webinar on the updates to OpenPoint Map.